Welcome to this specialized Strauss Naturals product training session. I'm Dr. Michael Garko, and I'm the nutrition advisor for Strauss Naturals. And by the way, it's a fun job. I love it. I'm joined today by Wayne Elliott, and he's president of Strauss Naturals. I've known Wayne for a long, long time. I consider him a friend and colleague. In this product training session, Wayne and I are going to focus on the Strauss Naturals bladder support drops, and it's one of the company's most innovative herbal formulations. Now, if you have clients, patients, or customers who struggle with urinary health concerns, such as bladder discomfort, an overactive bladder, urinary incontinence, bladder irritation, and infections, this is a must-see and a much-watched session. We'll discuss the purpose of the product. We're going to talk about its unique herbal formulation, its features and benefits, usage instructions, and how and why it can be paired with Strauss Naturals kidney support drops. So let's get started. Wayne, bladder-related health issues such as urgency, frequency, infection, and discomfort are really widespread when you look at the literature among men and women of various ages, especially the elderly. Many struggle to find natural solutions that are both effective and free of synthetic chemicals. Sometimes it's pretty hard to do. Could you talk about the purpose of the product as it would relate to people looking for a natural solution to those problems that I just mentioned?
Indeed. Dr. Garko, I think that along with the Strauss Heart Drops, the bladder formula became my mother's favorite because she would get up 4 and 5 times through the evening to use the washroom. And unfortunately for her, I did too for years, but I was always able to fall right back asleep and my mother couldn't. So, her bigger problem became exhaustion from getting up so often. And when she took the Strauss bladder formula, it was wonderful. She would get up once through the night, which is what I do. I can't say that I go the whole night, but then again, I hydrate in the evening. So it's not surprising I get up once. But, the intention was, of course, for bladder health, the overall health of the urinary system, and with that golden seal root as an ingredient, nature's strongest antibiotic herb, it's just very effective. And I've come to believe that that's really how the help starts, by helping our body kill the bacteria, which grows back very quickly too. So we always advise, don't skip a dose if you can help it. Be diligent in taking the formula 3 times a day. And you touched on it, the incontinence, the urinary tract infections, which are very, very difficult. But this formula is the cat's meow for those infections. And people have trouble with leaking. They sneeze and they can't control it, and
Right.
or cough and things like that. Very uncomfortable, embarrasses people. So it's the formula, as with all Strauss formulas, I believe was created specifically for the health of that part of our bodies.
For that system.
And,
Yeah.
to all these issues, which are all related, Doc. They're all related, of course.
They are.
There's an issue somewhere when you're suffering any of those things.
So generally then, the product is designed to support the urinary system overall, and then it zeroes in on the bladder and the kinds of health concerns that are related to the bladder. And with respect to the formulation, before I talk about the herbs that are in it, you alluded to one, the golden seal. I know that over the years I've talked with you about your relationship with Jim Strauss. When you were with him from time to time, did he give you any hint or idea about their philosophy or theory of herbal formulation that you could share?
Absolutely. And there is a name for it, Doc, and I can't think of the name, but the Strauss family had the talent of recognizing the medicinal value of herbs by taste and putting them together in formulations by taste. And I've heard the story a dozen times on how Jim and Peter created the heart drops in one afternoon for Jim, how they got that formula down. But what I love about the Strauss formulas, and Doc, it's the reason I believe that they all work. There isn't one formula Strauss makes that isn't satisfaction guaranteed 100%. And I think it was their understanding of the overall health. You know, today in Western medicine, in Canada, for example, you're not supposed to talk. Your doctor is not supposed to deal with more than one issue per appointment.
Yes,
I don't know how that saves the system anything, but it almost, it almost leads you to believe, okay, so they're really not focused on that everything connects in our bodies. And the Strauss family, all 8 generations, seem to have a very good understanding of that. You don't want to do one thing that hurts another. And so on top of the symptoms of one ailment or another would create, they were always conscious of the health of that organ, the system, and the body overall. So I think that was really the key, was their understanding. And as we've discussed, some of these formulas, they're just fantastic with up to 20 herbs in some of them. And I really think that's the key. They really knew and know what they're doing.
Well, this particular formula for the bladder support drops, it contains a blend, as you know, of 10 herbal extracts. You got birch leaf in there, which acts as a natural diuretic, Wayne, and it promotes urine flow. Bilberry leaf supports urinary tract health, and it with antioxidants and astringent properties. It's kind of a neat herb. Uva ursi leaf, that contains compounds that form like a natural antiseptic for the system. Juniper fruit supports kidney and bladder function, and it also acts as a natural diuretic. Saw palmetto fruit, that's typically for prostate health, but it's also for urinary function. People don't realize that, Wayne. White willow bark is anti-inflammatory. Linden flower has a calming properties to help reduce that discomfort associated with irritated bladder. Nettle leaf is in there. That helps reduce irritation and inflammation. Corn silk soothes the bladder when you feel that discomfort. Golden seal root that you mentioned is known for its antimicrobial properties. There is a lot of research on that, and it supports a healthy urinary tract. So that's an interesting blend of herbs. You said something really important. Western medicine typically is become very specialized. You got heart doctors, kidney doctors. You got a doctor for every almost cell in the body. It's a little different in traditional medicine, where you're trying to look at it from a holistic perspective. So you may be right. Maybe when the Strauss family created these formulations, they were trying to situate the formula within a bigger context of the overall body. So that's an interesting idea, huh?
Yeah. And I do believe that's the case, Doc. And no one's ever been harmed with a Strauss formula. There's never been a complaint to Health Canada in the United States, the DEA, or to the Strauss company. There has never been anyone harmed or complained of any kind of harm or serious side effect, that's for sure. Of course, detoxing might be expected with some of these formulas. Yes. And in the case of the bladder, my experience, you may urinate more, even extra, for a day or two, but then watch what happens. And here's the other thing I love about it, Doc, is that nobody will go more than 1 week and not notice differences, and that this is working. I promise you will not go longer than a week. I would say the average is more like 3 days.
3 days.
And where you'll start to get some of this relief, which is great. I mean, and of course, it's not just to treat the symptoms. You will, if you got a urinary tract infection and get rid of it, it's not, you don't have to take this for life. The formulas really do work. So I think they had a tremendous understanding. And as you know, Doc, this started 8 generations ago. So there was no modern medicine back when these people started as medicine men and women.
Well, 8 generations. How much of a time period is that, Wayne? We're talking about over 100 years, clearly.
I think it's over 200 years, Doc. over
Yeah,
200
for
years.
sure.
Not
So
that they were in commercial business. Jim told me growing up, his grandmother and aunts trained him. I don't know anything about his parents, but he would someone would come and see him, and he would trade them for a piece of bacon or some vegetables.
right, they would barter.
They were bartering back in those days, and it really wasn't until uh, Jim, they helped Jim tremendously, Jim Strauss with the Strauss heart drops, that they went into formal commercial business 45 years ago.
So the family was making these formulations long before the company was a traditional company doing marketing and commercialized and selling product. They were creating these formulas for the family, I guess, for their friends and others.
Yeah.
That they were, as you call them, medicine men,
Yeah.
which is an interesting idea. So it's good to know because it sort of gives an understanding of where these formulas are coming from. Now, there are a lot of products out there that focus on the bladder, and you and I have never been in the business of ever trashing any other product or company. We don't do that. But the Strauss bladder support drops are really unique, and they're effective because of the features and benefits. What are some of the standout features and benefits? I know, for example, one is 100%, they're 100% natural herbal extract formula, no synthetic ingredients. That's a good start, right? What are some other ones?
Yeah. Well, they're in liquid form, as you know, so it able to get right to work. Don't have to go through the effort of digesting. When they started, everything was tea. They made teas. This is way long before the heart drops. Our flagship product was created, ironically, for Jim, and it's it's a world famous product, the Strauss heart drop.
Do you happen to know why they shifted from teas to tinctures?
Well, I was partly responsible many years ago. They shifted from teas to capsules. The heart drops were always liquid, of course. Right.
Okay.
Since the day Jim and Peter first made them for Jim. But the other formulas were all teas. And it was a little bit cumbersome. They didn't taste very good. Loose tea, you'd have to filter out the solids and so forth. When I got well years ago with Strauss, it was teas. My friend and I, former teammate, we took the lymphatic formula, the liver formula, the kidney formula. They were all teas. And then I convinced them to put them into a capsule form to make them easier for people and more convenient for people. And then now it is 100% liquid formulas. So they're fast acting. They're very easy to take, get to work quickly. And yeah, like the Strauss seems to have, they really did a good job, certainly picking the ingredients and then putting them in the proper proportions. But Jim would say, just like your mother or your grandmother making you a nice dinner or a nice soup, she'll always taste it, make sure it doesn't need a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that. Right. And I got to say, they had their craft down very cold, Doc. They were
sure. Really- And going back to the formula and the herbs, one of the real benefits of this particular formulation is that those herbs work together. You got to, you just don't throw one herb with another because they're herbs. Sometimes you can put herbs together and they blow up the lab, so to speak.
Right.
So you have to be careful when you're working with these herbs because they're chemicals. Herbs are chemical compounds. They're made up of chemical compounds.
Yep.
So the formulation is so unique in the way these herbs work synergistically, as they say, or together. So that's a great benefit. In terms of usage, another benefit is they're easy to use. What are the usage instructions, dosage and usage?
Yeah, it's on the bottle, the range, and Health Canada controls that. But generally speaking, a minimum of one full dropper, that's 1 milliliter, 3 times a day. And Doc, about this formula in particular, I did your show for a few years that you were on in Florida, Let's Talk Nutrition. And I also did the Power Hour at the same time once a week. And I'll always remember this lady called in and she said, I've had a urinary tract infection for 25 years. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, you poor soul. And she said, I tried everything my doctor ever came up with. If there was a new pharmaceutical, I tried it. She said, I visit the health stores, and if I saw a new product that I hadn't tried, I bought it and tried it. Nothing worked for me. She said, I heard you on the Power Hour last month and talking about the bladder formula, and said to herself, well, that won't work either. Nothing has worked for me, but I'm committed to continue to try, and I will try everything in the interest of getting rid of this. So she said, I ordered the bladder formula. It came and I started taking it just as directed. And she said, in a week, I knew there was something happening. She said, a big difference. My symptoms had really changed. She said, I called my doctor, made an appointment. So it was 2 weeks exactly since I got the bladder formula and my appointment with the doctor. He did the tests and I no longer had the urinary tract infection. Wow. And she said, I just had to call the show and tell you because I thought 25 years, I had almost given up, and I wanted to tell you your bladder formula works. So I loved that call, and I felt so good for her, of course.
It's an anecdotal piece of evidence, but we should not dismiss it. There's science to support every one of those herbs and how they work and their function. But that story is compelling, no?
Yeah. And now I think I told you, Doc, and it's always done well with urinary tract infections. That lady was certainly one example that called into the show, but Health Canada said that if the company added just a little bit more juniper berries and a little bit more uva ursi, already 2 of the ingredients, that we could claim for urinary tract infection. So that's what we've done. As I say, it worked. It worked as it was, Doc, but this was Health Canada's wishes, and it didn't. I checked with Peter Strauss. It didn't change the effectiveness one bit, of course. It certainly didn't hurt it to add a bit more of those two. So this really is a world-class formula, and more people than I ever realized suffer with these things, Doc, especially in their senior years. My mother, we were once driving to Florida together, and I said, Ma, if we have to keep stopping at every second or third exit, we're going to be 3 weeks getting to Florida, not 3 days. It wasn't very nice of me, but I thought, holy mackerel, this is unbelievable. I said, you got to quit drinking tea and coffee. Let me get some miles underway here.
You're doing a tour of the restrooms on your way.
That's right. I was putting as many miles on the exit ramps as I was on the road. Anyway, my poor mom, God bless her, but she was helped tremendously with this formula.
Before finishing up here, there's something really important to talk about. I'm a big fan of using different herbs with one another and different products with one another. It turns out that the urinary and kidney health are really closely linked.
Oh, yeah.
And making the bladder support drops and the kidney support drops a potential complementary pair.
Yeah.
Many practitioners want to know, can you take those two together? Because they realize, well, kidney, bladder, urinary system, can you take them together? And if so, how do they work together? Can we talk a little bit about that?
Oh, there's no question you can take them together, Doc. I have. Years ago, I got a kidney infection, the doctors told me, and I did take them both. And pardon me, you can throw the prostate formula in there for men. Nothing wrong with taking all 3, Doc. As you say, it's all connected. And I think it's just a smart thing to do, is to take the kidney with the bladder. And if you're a man and have a prostate, then excuse me, the prostate formula. I'll tell you this, that many years ago, when they put them into capsules, it's interesting. The bladder formula and the prostate formula were quite similar. And I guess someone thought they'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone So when they were producing capsules, called it bladder prostate formula.
Oh,
Well, it wasn't a smart move. Guess
yeah.
why? Women said, well, we don't
We
have
don't
a
have a
prostate.
prostate.
So it turned out to be a very bad business decision. But if you take a look at the two formulas, they are quite similar. And I'm grateful now that they're separate. I've been taking the prostate formula myself for a couple of months, sensing a weakness there. But yeah, there's no danger or contraindications, Doc, with the Strauss formulas, because I am usually taking a half a dozen at a time myself.
Okay.
You
So
know,
what's interesting here, Wayne, you got filtration by the kidneys. The kidneys they act like a natural filter. They
yeah,
remove toxins and excess water and waste. And then you got the bladder, which it acts as a reservoir in temporarily storing urine until it's ready to be expelled.
yeah,
And then when the bladder reaches a certain capacity, signals are sent to the brain, right?
yeah,
Initiating the need to urinate. And then the bladder contracts and the urine is expelled through the urethra. So you got the kidneys and the bladder working together
yeah,
in synchronization. And if your kidney function is optimal, that's going to help the bladder if it's somewhat impaired, and vice versa. So
for
it's a good
sure.
idea to take those two organs are working together all the time. So we
Yeah,
recommend that people consider taking the kidney support and the bladder support drops together.
sure.
Uh,
And of course, Doc, the Strauss heart drops, we've learned through experience over many years, make everything work better, because the Strauss heart drops intention is to let you have full blood flow as you were created, everywhere you have a vein or a vessel. Um, the uh, uh, the other thing about the bladder, maybe people aren't conscious of this, but if we're very healthy, we're meant to urinate about 8 times per day. And I kept track for the longest time, not the longest time, but for months. I kind of do now in my head. And of course, morning time for me, because I'll have a couple of cups of coffee. I start out with room temperature warm water, a tumbler or two, then a couple of cups of coffee, and then I'll drink 2 or 3 tumblers this size of my smoothie. So I do my first four generally by noon every day. So I'll go
yeah,
like 4 times in the first 5 or 6 hours I'm awake, and then 4 times for the other 18 hours. And but I used to get up, like I said to you, like my mom, 4 and 5 times at night, and it was a pain in the neck. I think I thought I was okay because I always got back to sleep pretty easily. But if
yeah,
that's interrupting your REM sleep, the
it
rapid
does.
eye movement sleep when you're repairing, that's no good either, whether you get right back
Um,
to sleep or not, right?
Yeah, you want you want uninterrupted sleep cycle as much as possible, especially when you're in the REM in the REM modality. Pardon me. So, in closing, uh, Wayne and I and everyone at Strauss Naturals want to thank you for taking the time to watch this product training on the bladder support drops. The key takeaways here are the bladder support drops, the formulation is such that it will address your urinary concerns naturally and support healthy bladder function. It's synthetic free blend of 10 carefully selected herbs that work together. The product's in liquid form, faster absorption effectiveness, easy to use and take and use. And you can pair it with the kidney support drops, and you got a great combination. And it's 100% money back guarantee, and the product works. So, Wayne, what would you like to share with the folks watching today before we close?
Well, I always hope that the people will give it to themselves. I know money is it's a challenge these days with inflation and so forth, but um, life's a lot better, Doc, when we feel good. There's no question about that. When we're suffering any number of ailments, it's not as pleasant an experience as if we're healthy. And so I hope the folks will give it to themselves today. And you're safe. Your body knows what to do with natural substances. It just does. And your satisfaction, as you point out, is guaranteed. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And you've mentioned this a lot of times. Prevention, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So we can really eliminate a lot of issues by being proactive and taking formulas such as these for prevention. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We exercise, we try and eat well, do other things to try and keep ourselves healthy. It's a very good idea to take good supplements like these.
Yeah, and you have, any of the practitioners today, whether you work in a store, whether you're a physician, whether you're a naturopath, whatever it is that you're doing to help people with their health, wellness, and well-being. If you have any questions about the product training on the bladder support drops, please reach out to Strauss Naturals. We're always here to support you in promoting and selling Strauss Natural products. And we do appreciate you watching this training video. And we'll see you the next time.
Thank you, folks.